Hey, Kerbis!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 63 with service to Sunset Arms Boarding House of 4040 Vine Street, Hillwood, Washington. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, if you see someone with a football head on the flight, don't bring it up. They know, and they don't need to be reminded.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How are you boys doing today?
I'm fantastic. I got my lucky banana shoes on, and I'm ready to record a podcast.
Absolutely. I'm catching a game down at Old Quigley Field
Oh my God.
this weekend.
Well, boys, this week we are diving into the world of Hey Arnold, a Nickelodeon classic for sure that I'm very excited to talk about in more depth. But before we do so, Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, and if we think they could be made today. Go back and stream our other episodes wherever you get podcasts from. Check us out on YouTube to see our football heads. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
Perfect episode for football season. I would say I want to know, because obviously Arnold is loose vibes on the pod today. Because obviously Arnold is a football-shaped head weirdo, and so is everyone else in Hey Arnold. I don't think anyone has a normal shaped head. Everyone either looks like a bong or a fruit or a sporting good equipment thing. I want to know, if you could choose a different shape for your head, what would you choose?
Max, I'm curious, what would you choose?
I'm a pretty oval-headed individual. This is a good segment to check us out on YouTube if you're currently listening to an audio format. I'm a pretty log oval-headed individual, and I want to get a real Charlie Brown perfect sphere kind of vibe going about my head. I want to go absolute basketball-headed. I think I don't know. I think front-facing snapbacks and beanies would look a lot better on me if I had a real round head.
Yeah, you could actually be the real representation of every emoji if you did that.
Yeah.
So, Rich, I literally, when you asked that question, I pulled up just a chart of shapes because I was like, what is the best shape? And it will be
congratulations on being a 2-year-old.
Geoff Kerbis took a 30 milligram edible and started Googling what is the best shape.
And I have decided that, Max, I enjoy wearing a hat here and there as well. But I really think a solid rectangle head would look fairly solid. Now I mean true rectangle. A rectangle can be, or a square can be a rectangle, but not all rectangles can be squares in this instance. Absolutely. I want a rectangle that is not a square. Rich, what about you?
Are you thinking eyes at the corners of the rectangle? Because what would your peripheral vision?
What if they were on either side? What if I just decided?
Oh man, like a real flat fish.
Yeah. Jeff's pulling up to the function like a sunfish.
I can never have an eye-to-eye conversation with anyone. That is my goal. Embrace my social anxiety with my shape of head.
Incredible. I think for mine, this feels like an all fantasy everything episode. I think I'm going geodesic dome. I think I'm going mid-century modern with my brain.
Oh my God.
I think it's one of the strongest structures in nature. I think if bees could build honeycombs with that type of structure, I think that would be totally sufficient for my head. Plus, if I wore a cowboy hat, it'd look real fun.
What if I just said volcano?
Just concave.
Yeah,
in.
I just want a pit in the center.
Those are some of our favorite shapes. Julio Torres, come on the pod.
If you're a fan of the podcast, on the Spotify quiz, put the name of your favorite shape down there.
Oh my God.
But make sure to take a 30 milligram edible first.
Rich, thanks so much. If it's legal. And thanks so much for that question of the week. Before we dive into Hey Arnold, a few quick words from our sponsors. Welcome back.
Sponsors, sorry.
Thanks so much, Rich, for being our sponsor. Welcome back. Let's talk a little bit more about Hey Arnold. With a quick synopsis to start, fourth grader Arnold Shortman lives with his grandparents in an inner city boarding house. That's it.
I did not know his last name. That's so funny.
that is his that is what a synopsis. Max, what did we build off of this?
Today we are talking about the pilot episode of Hey Arnold. It's two segments, Downtown as Fruits and Eugene's Bike, which originally aired on October 7th, 1996. And we're going to dive in and learn a little bit more about the show's creator, Craig Bartlett. So Bartlett, born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, he begins his career in animation, working in stop motion with the studio in Portland, Oregon, before moving to LA in 1987 to work on claymation segments for Pee-wee's Playhouse. Other early gigs of Bartlett's include animating the music video for Weird Al's Jurassic Park and working as a story editor on Rugrats.
That fucking rules.
This is honestly like one of the coolest dudes we've talked about.
Yeah.
This dude fucking rips. Through his work on Rugrats, Bartlett and some of the other editors have an opportunity to pitch Nickelodeon executives on a series of their own. The series that Bartlett pitches was inspired by shorts he did for Pee-wee's Playhouse, centered around two characters named Penny and Arnold. Despite intending to pitch a show around Penny, execs were interested in the minor Arnold character, the described reluctant hero who keeps finding himself responsible for solving something, as said by Bartlett himself. A pilot of the show, at this point just titled Arnold, was produced in 1994, and a year later was ordered to series by Nickelodeon. The original 10-ish minute pilot was actually attached as an animated short with Nick's first feature film, Harriet the Spy, and released in theaters on July 10th, 1996. That pilot is available online for those willing to do a little bit of digging. The show is actually really notable for being the first Nicktoon to actually feature children as the voices of its kid characters. And the roles were actually recast multiple times over the course of its run, with one exception. Any guesses?
Gerald.
Correct.
Yeah.
Jameel Walker-Smith, the voice of Gerald, did stay on for the entire run of the show.
Wow.
And yes, you may have been a little confused by Jeff's flight destination at the top of the episode. We are not in Brooklyn. This is one of the hottest takes about Hey Arnold. But as said by Craig Bartlett himself, the town is the fictional Hillwood, Washington. It's an amalgamation of Seattle, Portland, and Brooklyn that takes geographic landmarks and architectural styles from all three. There is a season 3 episode, apparently, where Helga and her mom, Helga's a character we'll get to know in the show for those who are, not caught up with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in before you watch Hey Arnold.
They go on a road trip to South Dakota, and when they're in the car, they pass a state line sign saying, "Welcome to Washington State." But yeah, to many people, this show is New York City. If you think I'm full of shit and you just turned off this episode, you have it in your power, but I would encourage you to come back because we're going to teach you a lot more fun things today. Please give us another chance. If I pissed you off, give me another chance.
Joke's on you. We already got your impression and your listen. Thanks, Spotify.
So wait, okay. So based on that description of Gerald being the only person played by an adult, that means there is a sound booth full of 7 children and one old guy or one older guy.
Well, no. He was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's just the only person who didn't get replaced. Like actors would hit puberty and they can't voice elementary school
different.
anymore.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. Because Gerald sounds. I guess we'll get into it a little bit, but Gerald sounds older. There's no. I don't know what the age of the performer was when they recorded this, but he sounds markedly older.
For our audience, this is a new segment where we explain puberty to Rich. So, Rich, there's a time in your life.
No, I'm 18.
Because you're 18 and, late bloomer. It's okay.
Topics we've covered so far today: shapes, puberty.
Well, Max, thank you so much.
Review.
Thanks so much for that background. I'm curious, did either of you, before watching this, the pilot episode that we are going to be talking about today, I went ahead and watched this pilot that debuted before Harriet the Spy. And I was curious if either of you got a chance to check it out, and what were your thoughts of it as a whole, as like really this proof of concept, but also something that I found really intriguing.
Oh, I didn't know if you had anything, Rich.
Oh, okay. I actually did not see it, so I'm super excited to be the audience surrogate for this one. I'm excited to explain it to me.
I think what the proof of concept short does that like kind of carries through into the series too is it uses like dream sequences to really set up who Arnold is a protagonist. It's such a grounded show, and compared to modern animation, it's so low stimulus and it's so calm and it's so real and natural. And so I like that it takes these moments up top to play with imagination and to get a little fantastical, to like give you those like goofy cartoon moments before really getting grounded. I don't know, I feel like it's a pretty well fleshed out concept compared to what we saw with the actual pilot that came out 2 years later. But yeah, I think it sets it up well, and I think like the main tone of it is so evident from the short to what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that it does a very good job of is it's a very simple story. That, you know, if you are a parent going to see Harriet the Spy with your child, then you're like, oh, I can buy into the story. And if you're a child, it's a story that you're rooting for Arnold of, hey, Arnold mistakenly gets into a situation where bully Harold wants to beat the crap out of him. And now he has to psych himself up for a fight. Just a few things that I genuinely loved in this little short before we get into our main pilot. One, they automatically set up the grandparents as these are the most insane people that should not be raising children by any means whatsoever. The second thing is there's a moment where Helga gets a bullhorn and she tells Arnold every minute, like at midnight, how close he is to getting his ass whooped, and then places an ad in the newspaper and on the radio. And I want to know, Helga's going to be ruling the world one day. That is my instant thought.
Also a big fan of Arnold going through the process of what if I just act crazy to scare off my bullies, which is a logical thing that one could do.
Yeah, that's I feel like kids would be well served to learn that young. It's like you don't want to be the bigger person in the fight. You want to be the person that's less afraid to die.
Yeah, it's in all honesty, if you aren't familiar with this short, highly recommend finding it and watching it.
So, would you say it does a good job of like just keeping the same, because the intro and theme song of Hey Arnold, like that whole thing is like kind of like New York noir like looking almost. It's very muted tones. It's very like, yeah, we're in a city that's kind of grungy, like we're gonna play in that space. It still keeps that same kind of feel to it.
Yeah, Max, like I am of the mindset that I think it does a really solid job of having the same tone, having the same feel. Like they're literally playing baseball in the backyard of like their school that is just not even a grass. It's like it's a regular lot, right?
Yeah.
And it does have that feel of not New York, but you know, good old Hillwood, Washington that we grew to love when we were watching Hey Arnold as kids.
But Rich, you talked a little bit about like the intro tone too, and I feel like for people of a certain age, this theme song and music is definitely going to resonate with you. And I don't know, being a little bit older now, I think about a lot of like the music that I like from like the early to mid 90s as well. And I think about a lot of that like very jazzy New York hip hop that was coming out at this time with groups like De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest. And it's like, there's so much like that I can imagine like De La rapping over the Hey Arnold theme song, and it wouldn't feel out of place on a record that was coming out in the mid 90s. And so it's like, okay, you can kind of see like that city feel in here and like what this amalgamation is, because yeah, that feels way more New York than Pacific Northwest.
And definitely. Like one thing, Rich, I'm like sort of sad that you didn't watch this. James Brown is used in the short. Like they use a James Brown song, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
so well placed. And like, we'll talk a little bit more about the music of this show. But genuinely, I was like, oh yeah, they used budget to get a song for this to make sure that it had every single chance of doing really, really well, and people thinking like, oh yeah, I'm
Nickelodeon was
into
taking
this.
some real big swings back then. That's like, I mean, having this be the one short before, like that's primetime stuff. Like doing it right before the Harriet the Spy movie, which you said, Max, that was their first ever like feature film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's massive real estate. They could have done anything that was popular already at that time. Like they could have done Doug, Rugrats, that kind of thing. They chose a new.
And they went with an unseen,
Yeah.
unproven concept, which shows
Yeah.
what kind of confidence they had in this and in Craig Bartlett.
That's awesome.
Well, let's talk a little bit more, and let's dive in on the idea of this main show, and the 2 episodes that we saw. Before we even get into one of these segments, right? Let's talk about the theme music, the intro to this show, because I think it's just so iconic for our generation. The idea of that "Hey Arnold" being shouted and meeting all of these characters, and watching Arnold go throughout this small city, or big city. I've never been to Hillwood, Washington, so I couldn't say.
No one has.
Yeah, I would say I would dare to say you're not the only one.
But like, what were y'all's thoughts about this intro? Because instantly I feel like I'm encompassed by a warm nostalgia blanket, and I'm slightly biased of being like, oh yeah, this fucking slaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple until the absolute end of the theme song. The only 2 words that are spoken are "Hey" and "Arnold." Like it's like you get the entire crew coming. Also, God bless these poor writers who had to have the names Harold, Gerald, and Arnold in one like script together. Are like, what a disaster waiting to happen on that one. But you get the entire crew that's going to show up. Basically, it's all the kids in the neighborhood. It has like kind of it doesn't feel modern. Like even in the time, it doesn't feel modern. Like you could have told me that this show took place in the 60s or 70s, and I would have totally believed you. Nothing really felt like of the moment except for the music, I would say. And I mean, it's so simple. It's so jazzy. Like it's like a very relaxing feeling compared to what could have come on before it, which is something like Ren and Stimpy, which would have been alarming and like way overstimulating. This is like this is for the ADHD kids. This is when you get to calm them down a little bit before bed.
And I do want to just give a little a shout out here to the composer of the score, Jim Lang. And for those who are so inclined, it's actually a really in-depth interview that Jim Lang did with The Ringer 2 years ago, all about composing the theme music and his history, and like working as a touring musician for like big rock stars and pop stars over the years as well. Definitely not as high profile as, say, like Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo doing the Rugrats music, but yeah, like
That's
Jim
so
Lang,
sick.
absolutely up there in the like animated theme music like pantheon.
Yeah,
100%. Well, we get this amazing intro, and let's talk about our first of 2 segments, Downtown as Fruits. And I think just setting the stage, one of the nice things that is used as a consistent go-to or trope of these Hey Arnold episodes is seeing Arnold dream. Daydreaming is a very big thing, and what 4th grader isn't daydreaming, right? But in this instance, we start off surfing, but then find ourselves in the school play / musical.
Surfing amongst dinosaurs, mind you. Not just surfing, not just hanging 10.
I also love how it's very visible that you can tell from the pilot that you're not going to get introduced to any other classes that go to the school. It's just like the 8 kids in this one class, and they're going to be representing the entire school, the entire show. They're like, we're not drawing any new kids. you can double our contract if we're drawing any new kids.
We blew the budget on jazz, baby. We can only animate 8 kids.
So I have to ask Max. We are going into this school play. There is
my discussion of youth theater.
Yes, youth theater. Not only youth
I'm
theater,
gonna mute my microphone right now.
But did Helga maybe bring up some feelings of someone who was slightly too impassioned about the school play or school musical at 4th grade.
I don't understand this trope in TV of the 4th graders being these like bossy little tyrant directors. It's like you think about like Lucy directing the pageant in like Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, Helga Pataki directing the food group play in the Hey Arnold pilot. Like, no, there is a chaperone or a music teacher who's doing this. I have never once seen a 4th grader given the reins to direct the school play. This is absolute blasphemy. What I related to the most is there's a kid who we never talked to again named Iggy, and they ask Iggy what his motivation is, and he says,
Yes.
I don't know, I'm a utensil, which feels very coded to Jeff Goldblum in his first film role in a certain Oscar Best Picture winner that I'm not going to say the name of because we don't like the director, where he just picks up a phone and says, I forgot my mantra, which is incredibly LA.
And like, there was also a great joke where they were like, I want to hear what's in your soul. And someone says, does fruit have souls? And like that joke alone.
The fish section does.
In that
Yeah. Oh, I got him.
Fucking A.
The musical numbers do slap in this though. Like I'm thinking about like later on when we get like the meats singing together, like the hams and the steaks are all singing together. The meat song is a real honest and true classic Broadway number. Very Ziegfeld Follies. I'm a huge fan of that. The fruits number at the end to bring it all home
was a delight.
I didn't know how we were going to get to this, but really just an iconic 11 o'clock number. Really powerful, really emoting.
And in order to get there, there has to be some form of issue. And in this instance, it is Arnold and Gerald are so upset that they have to be in these delightful fruit costumes. First of all,
costuming, I will say.
Amazing costuming. I think we could have picked a better fruit to fit Arnold's head because I did love the animator's slight details, and you see the outline of his head poking out of the sides of the banana, which is just wonderful. But
no, I can't think of a better fruit because of when you think of the shape of the banana and you compare it to the shape of Arnold's head, they don't go together, and that's the joke. And that's the joke.
But I think that
those banana shoes do rip though.
The episode does do a great job of being like, hey, we've all had that thought of like, I don't want to do this thing. What if I bailed? Right? Or like some version of hooky. And we get to see via these, one of the things I think the show does such a great job of is it does these delightful montages that are very fast paced, but tell a great story in about 30 seconds maximum.
Yeah.
And this episode does that. We see them, going about not New York and running into some money, because who would have thought that there'd be two groups of people dressed as a strawberry and a banana?
Dude, absolutely dying at what that mob plan was of just like, hey, we're going to give this to you in a pretty public location. Make sure to wear the most garish fruit costumes of all time.
Genuinely, I think this episode does set such a good tone of, the more that we look back at animation, there are some shows that we watch and I'm like, oh, very clearly not for the 3 30-year-olds and rich that are watching this. But this is one of those ones where I'm just watching this first segment and I'm like, I am utterly delighted by everything that's going on here, and there's so many great jokes.
Something that I don't think I would have picked up on how specific it is to city living when I was a kid that I now appreciate as an adult is when Arnold and Gerald are leaving the house to get to the bus, and we just see a quick throwaway line of a man riding down the street and screams, "I'm Monkey Man," which to anyone who spent any time living in LA, New York, Chicago, any city.
We all know that guy.
Yeah, you know that guy.
We all know Monkey Man.
And your monkey man might be the Silver Lake Walker. It might be Hollywood Jesus. It might be any number
Yeah.
of these kinds of people. But you know these people. You know
I
a monkey
actually,
man.
I will say, like, I cannot think of another show that is so based in the reality of living in New York, LA, or Chicago. Like, this is like every other city's or every other show. I'm trying to think of like shows like Recess or Rugrats or whatever. It is like, it feels like they're all based in shows where you don't have to necessarily deal with the city itself, but this kind of normalizes city behavior or like just the things that like a kid would have to deal with growing up in New York anyways. It's just like, yeah, you're going to deal with Monkey Man. You're going to deal with taking the wrong bus and ending up in a place where you can't call your parents to
Would you say that Hilldale is the fifth character?
Yeah, but there's like 10 characters.
Just some more about this segment before we move on to the next one. Like, I'm curious from the two of you, were there any jokes that really hit for you that you were like, I need to shine a small light on this just before we move on to our next segment?
I love the specifics of the businesses here. I would 100% hang out at both Gino's Souvlaki Shack and Ernie's Pool Hall. Like, that 100%. Sounds like a really good night to be like sitting on the curb outside of Gino's, eating a Souvlaki, and then going shooting pool down at Ernie's, getting some soda pops for the entire bar. That's a really good Friday night to me.
I think a really bad Friday night would be ending up at Zamboni Jones. I think that was
Zamboni Jones' Psychic Palace.
Yeah, I really love that character. Like everyone, I feel like even it seemed like that was a difficult concept for kids, but maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it wasn't. Like, I guess anyone can really figure out what a psychic is, or like kids around that age can figure out what a psychic is. But it's so funny that he's so bad at it. It's like it is so ham-fisted. He looks like DJ Khaled.
Are you convinced that's DJ Khaled?
That's DJ Khaled. Because you know what? We don't get just one part of this pilot. We get another one.
Oh my god. And I will say the small joke while Arnold and Gerald are going back to the school to eventually perform of the people of downtown are just so nice was just like genuinely just a delightful, like great little throwaway, but for like the adults in the room, great joke.
But it's also, it pays off with the callback because, you know, when we get the morals, when we get like, you know, the morality that we need to see where they realize the error of their ways and all the things that they've gotten into trouble with because they ditched the play, they give the rest of their giant bag of money to a family on the side of the road with car trouble. And we get that same line, that same callback of people downtown are so nice. So it's like that thing pays off in the end. I think also, before we move on, it's the first glimpse of the Helga relationship to Arnold and the two sides of it.
Yep.
The aggressive facing in public and the secret yearning and love. This is a show that is so much about people's relationships with each other, with their environment. And I think that's why we're sitting here at like the age and life experience we have now. And we're like so fond about it in a way that maybe we're not for certain other animated series we've covered on this podcast, because it's like, this is just a show about life and about connections and about how we make those things and about Souvlaki and things that we all really enjoy.
Yeah, I think something that really stuck out to me with Hey Arnold so far is that the character of Arnold does not feel like a kid's show protagonist. He has like the moral compass and stuff like that, but it's still pretty easily swayed to do other stuff. You don't really get to know what his wants are yet. And I'm curious what both of you think. Like, what does the character of Arnold mean to both of you as the centerpiece of this show right now? Because it doesn't seem like it's a super well developed character, and things are like, the story is exciting. The story is happening around them. They could have had a really dope night if they didn't go shoot pool. They could have ended up with like what's clearly like several $100,000 in a paper bag, and and yeah, I'm just like, he's daydreaming. He kind of has like a little bit of a deep voice. He doesn't care too much, it seems. And yeah, I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah, and I would say for me, looking at this character through the eyes of like, we review TV, I can't help but think of Arnold as a clear protagonist of a sitcom, right? The protagonist of a sitcom might not be the funniest of characters. They are put into the situations by the cast of characters that surround them. In this instance, Gerald put him into this situation, right? Gerald was the voice inside of his head of someone who does not have strong opinions, being like, yeah, we're skipping. Like, fuck off, loser. We're not going to the school play. Like, and then in that same situation, and we'll make segue to the next episode, Arnold is the tag along to seeing the life of Eugene Horowitz, which is one of the most delightful 10-minute little segments that we'll talk about in a second.
He's the one who is I referred to as the head shape as a bong. It is.
See, it's interesting you say that because it reminds me of an open can from like Popeye, like of spinach, and the hair also is the spinach. Max, what about you before we dive into Eugene's
what shape do you think his head is?
I think that there's a couple of examples that Nickelodeon has where they just really thrive in characters who are finding themselves, like people who are good, not great at things, and they're discovering the world, and we get to see it through their eyes. As Told by Ginger is another really good example of this concept. And it's refreshing that it's not the person who's just incredible at everything. Arnold is not some like whiz bang, what can't he do? He's very real, and he's aspirational, and he's like obtainable too. And he has really cool things. He has, the bedroom that we haven't even got to yet. He has this kind of cool downtown demeanor about him, but there's nothing that doesn't feel like you can't be Arnold Shortman. And I think for kids watching this, that's a really good feeling.
Yeah. It's good to have, like, I would not be upset as a parent if I had a kid who was like, oh, I want to be like Arnold. And it's like, you know what? Great. There are so many worse things to be. If I had a kid who was like, I want to be like Morty, I'd be like, nope, we're sending you to boarding school. Like right now. Can we
settle a quick also Arnold lore debate before we get into our second segment? A hot topic amongst people our age is insisting that Arnold wears a kilt. And I remember hearing that for so long. They're like, oh yeah, Arnold wears a kilt. And I see him looking down, I'm like, he's just a 90s kid. He's got very light blue, not quite acid wash, but very light blue jeans with an oversized flannel with a crew neck sweatshirt over it. Like, Arnold is not some Tom Brown male skirt wearing person. He's just a dude who's going to tell you about like Dave Matthews Band.
I think Rich and I are on the same page. And Rich, I'm going to see if you're correct. If we are. I think Arnold is wearing a sweatshirt that is tied around his front, around his waist. And one of the most
Nantucket mom with it.
Yeah, I think he is very much going like the coolest of 90 kids, where it's I'm slightly too warm with this sweatshirt, but I want to have it around.
But you can see the collar up on his neck from the flannel.
That's true. Maybe he's just really good. Maybe that fit is so goddamn stylized and so on point that he has a collared shirt that is matching.
He just looks like everyone who like worked at like an indie radio station at their college in the 90s.
Oh, okay. I actually could not see that the collar was the same pattern as the bottom of it too. That I didn't realize that until.
But you've heard that, right? Like, I've heard Arnold wears a kilt.
100%, and I think we can definitively say Arnold does not wear a kilt, but they did.
Oh, why'd you all, Rich? Why'd you all?
So funny. Someone did a steal this look thing for Arnold. I'm putting it in the chat.
Can you tell us how to steal the look?
Yeah, I'm looking at a nice like J. Crew like light blue sweater. I'm looking at some like probably AG denim like acid wash jeans. So
that's pretty great, Rich. I'll put the clip up.
$500 for this outfit. I'm seeing some Gucci loafers down at the bottom here.
Oh God, no. Well, let's talk about our next segment, which is Eugene's bike. And once again, we start off with daydreaming. And I think that this also gives us like shades of Arnold's personality of like the daydreams we are seeing are not just like normal boring fantasies or like everyday. These are adventuring. These are him going out and about doing something that might be even dangerous. With that being said, though, it is like I think I Max, was it show off, or show and tell, or was it just there's a bunch of kids who have weird hobbies or
No,
things
I
that
think
they like
kids
showing
are just
off?
fucking gross is the moral
Yeah.
of this episode.
Kids are fucking disgusting.
We get a kid showing off his pet worms in a box they brought to school. A girl shows off her scabs, and they're all gross and pussy.
One is very much shaped like Texas, I gotta say.
We get the kid Brady, the heavy mouth breeder, who just kind of has like candy covered in lint from his pocket. Except one of the nerds today has something cool and not gross.
Yeah, and I genuinely love this intro because there are, I think we both can say, those kids who you go to school with who collect weird things or just were genuinely gross human beings that even as a child you were like, oh yeah, you're gross and I don't want to deal with you.
I like that Hey Arnold commits to one term though for all of these kids, and they're all dorks.
Yeah, no matter what.
This is not a school full of geeks or nerds or dweebs. This is a school full of dorks.
And we
never forget it.
We get this introduction to. We've talked a little bit about Eugene already. Put your thoughts in the comments about what his head is shaped like.
You may have seen him last dressed as a ham in our school musical.
Yes. But in this instance, Eugene is.
We love a character arc.
Eugene's coming in on this bitchin' bike that he got for Flag Day, which is.
Hell yeah, dude.
Who gives gifts for Flag Day?
It's Flag Day, and my family exchanges
Americans.
gifts is such a funny specific line.
Yeah, that's definitely a top line for this entire pilot.
But there's some like small details in the comedy of this, right? As soon as he gets off the bike, one of the frames of his sunglasses just falls out to just give the concept of this character. There's nothing smooth about them other than they happen to own a really nice bike. And then we get the great line of every dork has his day. And then Eugene does the number one thing you are not supposed to do when you own a bike in a big city. And as a person who used to drive a bike or ride a bike around Chicago every single day, you gotta do the double check with the lock. You gotta. If that lock is not stable, you are either one, you do not have a bike, or two, that bike is going to be very, very poorly conditioned after you return from wherever you were. Like,
oh god,
watching. I guess my question for each of you: one, has there ever been something that you have been as passionate about as Eugene as he was about getting this bitchin' bike?
I feel like everything that I got in as a child that was like slightly nicer than my expectations, I treated like this. It was like a new baseball glove, my guitar, probably end of list. I really like I loved it. I cherished it. I like didn't let people look at it. It was like I was not flaunting it by any means. It was like people are gonna watch me no one's gonna watch me use this thing that I would guard with my entire life.
I distinctly remember getting one specific pair of basketball shoes that I wanted so bad when I was probably about this age, and I wanted more than anything else the Adidas Tracy
Patrick
McGrady
Ewing.
TMAC 2s.
Oh, hell yeah. These are great.
And listen, if you're on the YouTube, look at me. I did not need a pair of TMAC 2s. My ankles needed no support.
Up your game?
My ankles needed no support on the court. I was not going to turn into Toronto Raptor and Orlando Magic superstar Tracy McGrady, but I felt like a king when I had these on, and I was averaging like 3 points on a good day out there, but I felt like the hottest player on the court when I strapped on the TMAC 2s, and that's I know how Eugene feels with that bike, that power
Matt.
and that confidence that comes from it.
So
Max is out here in the Derrick Rose knee braces.
So I want you guys to remember that feeling of joy, because then just imagine it getting torn to pieces in front of you, because that is what happens with Arnold accidentally knocking over the bike. The bike. This is where the comicalness of a cartoon and the bike flying like 30 feet after being nudged by a few other bikes and then getting destroyed by a street sweeper. And I love that there were elements and inspirations that I saw in the animation of, we get this Eugene scream. And did you all notice that they did the Charlie Brown animation of like the nose up and the scream in the air? And it was just,
yeah, just the mouth as wide as the
just
entire
the mouth.
screen.
Yeah, and I was just like, you know what? Great. What a great like small nod. But what did you all think about seeing Arnold? First, we get the introduction to Arnold's room that we have not seen. What do we think of Arnold's bitchin' pad? And I'm going to use bitchin' 5 more times in this episode.
All right. Arnold knows how to fucking weld. That dude is going to kill it on Instagram.
Who gave a 10-year-old a circular saw? No. This show definitely takes place in, actually, honestly, either Seattle, Portland, or Brooklyn, because this 10-year-old is welding and circular sawing.
Yeah.
This is the second, I mean, bitch and pat aside, this is the second example of this show taking a line that we hear at the very beginning of an episode and then kind of changing the meaning behind it and repeating it later on. And we get that with Every Dork Has Its Day. The first time we hear it, it's Gerald kind of, I don't want to say poking fun at Eugene, but it's very like tongue-in-cheek. And the second time we hear it, it's Arnold making a pledge that he's going to give Eugene the best day ever. And I love how we see this twice now. I don't remember if this is a thing they do throughout the run of the show, but it's been a really cool reoccurring thing in this pilot.
It's just good writing. I think honestly, like it just is something. Kids understand repetition and kids understand like differences in context. And I think this is just like a really smart writing choice. And repetition is obviously, I mean, it's something that you're really going to remember. It's something that you can very easily have a through line for your pilot. Repetition is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that it's such a fun thing to have as, how is this going to change? What is going to be the line? If this is something that consistently happens, I don't think children are going to be seeking it out, being like, that's the line, or pointing it out. But for, once again, the adults who might be watching Nickelodeon with their kids, that is a nice, touching thing. And the show does genuinely have great morals as a whole. Let's dive a little bit more into this segment, though, because...
Can we talk about what insurance Eugene has? Because
the best insurance.
That dude is on the Platinum Black Card Empire Blue Cross plan.
Rich, he hits his maximum spend within 2 days of the year. Yeah. And then the rest, the out-of-pocket maximum, not even a thought for him, because he's getting that done right away. His family is so pumped to have him around. But, like, I love seeing these constant tragedies almost stack up in, you know, Arnold gives this bike and really has this empathy for Eugene, but then immediately the bike falls apart. Arnold goes to the hospital to go and help Eugene out and then immediately screws that up.
Yeah. Can we talk about also that Arnold has a pet pig? That was really softballed in there. They're just like, oh yeah,
Don't worry about it.
Don't think about it too much. Don't think about that too much. That's not a big part of this pilot. But then I do genuinely love the idea of Arnold looking back. We get this, once again, one of these great montages of Arnold believing that he's the reason that bad things happen to Eugene. And then...
And he's not wrong.
Not entirely. But then throughout... we get this juxtaposition of Arnold saying, I'm going to make sure you have the best day ever where nothing bad happens to you. Which is not the case. Like, but at the same time, we see that Eugene seems to fall into these issues on his own, of his own creation. Like, we go to the amazingly named Quigley Field, and
Mhm.
then see this home run hit Eugene in the face. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
just
You saw that one coming.
literally, yeah. And
He didn't.
it's the series of events, like the jokes that are thrown in with like Spuds McGee and all of that stuff. It's great. And it just reminds me of like, yeah, this show was so well put together of not trying to show us everything and tell us everything, but implying a lot with these small little devices.
It also knows when to like rest the silliness to get back to the morals at hand. And the way this ends is really touching, where it's like Arnold feels so bad for everything that happened and like befell Eugene this day. And Eugene's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, this is a day in the life for you. Like, this is the best day ever. I got to do all these things. Like, yes, I choked out a hot dog and I fell in the river, but I also got to swim in the river because of you." And like, he,
Yeah.
despite all of his suffering, sees like a glass half full optimism. And so when we get to like the morality, like the thing of each Harold episode, we then get to do one final button of Eugene getting his hand caught in a bus door. And it's like you get that final button because you give it time and like enough breathing room to
Mhm.
get back to like the real thing, to get one final good joke in.
You did also need to establish that Arnold was not the reason behind all of these
100%.
horrible things happening. And that was like, okay, this guy is just extremely accident prone. I loved the choice of them doing this day out as a series of photographs. That was such a great choice for the storytelling of it. I thought it was like, oh, I'm captivated. There's nothing that I'm gonna miss here. I want to look at every single frame. It felt like I was watching like a comic book of just like a series of unfortunate events. But it was I really love that artistic choice there. I know we're like really we're really geeked on this one. We're really geeked on this pilot.
Well, that is the end of this pilot. And we talked about a lot of things that we love, but were there any things that you loved that maybe we didn't talk about when discussing this pilot?
For me, Hey Arnold, it's a lot of things. It's a show about human connection. It's a show about coming of age and learning how to exist in the world. But above all else, it's a show about eating delicious street meats. It's a show about slamming souvlakis on a curb and eating hot dogs in the
Yeah.
park with your boys. And
they never made it look better.
never forget the takeaway from Hey Arnold, which is like, go get
It's takeaway. It's
go
get
get
takeaway.
takeaway. It's go slam some glizzies with your boys.
Rich, what about you?
Yeah, I just really enjoyed so many different artistic choices that they made here. I know I just mentioned the photographs and everything, but what a beautifully done pilot. They set up it's super rare that you get a inclination to watch a second episode that's not just like, ooh, like as a kid watching cartoons, I should say. You don't get normally get a second of, oh, I really want to watch this particular story between these two characters develop. Or like, oh, what's going to happen between Helga and Arnold? Like, you know, is everyone going to stay friends? Like they secondhand reference like bullying and stuff like that with Harold, but they don't really get to see much of it. You actually do get a little bit of like a push toward a second episode, which I thought was really nice. That like is such a rarity in that medium.
Yeah, for me, just a genuine delight. I think that this is. I've talked about all of this. We're about 50 minutes into recording right now on a 20-minute TV show. I think that says a lot about the things we love. I'll kick us off though on wait a minute moments.
What you got in the tank, buddy?
So this is me not growing up in a city, but if Arnold is potentially the youngest a fourth grader could be is 9 years old, depending on where you live, maybe 8, depending on your state's cutoff dates. That's really young to be putting a kid on a bus by themselves with another 8-year-old.
No,
in
you
my
didn't
mind,
that's
in my mind. And you know what? I'll represent the suburbs and say, yeah, that's scary. That's scary for a little 8-year-old to go on a bus by themselves. But I also recognize that I am not a city boy. I was not raised in the city.
it is hard to combat the stranger danger feeling for that a lot of us had to grow up with, unfortunately, because all of a sudden the news became 24-hour cycles that they had to fill with one kid getting kidnapped in like some other state that you've never been to and that kind of stuff. It's like that is a normal thing. I think kids should be exposed to public transportation, being exposed to adults that are not necessarily your parents out in the world and stuff like that.
Just
but
some make believe like Fox News paranoia in a town that's not even real, like I don't know, Hillwood, Washington or something.
What about you two? Any wait a minute moments for you on this pilot?
Kids suffer a lot on this show. Like, kids get punched in the face, they get their glasses broken, they end up in the hospital and in like slings and casts. Like, look, I know kids are clumsy. Everyone had a cast or a broken bone at some point in their youth. These kids are going through it.
Yeah, Eugene has the fortitude of like a prize fighter. He has been through an awful lot, and he is still absolutely kicking on that day. I don't really have any wait a minute moments from this show. I feel like everything's so solid.
And I will add, in the pilot episode or the unaired pilot / the pilot that was shown before Harriet the Spy, if a bully tells you to fight someone, don't do it. That's all I'm gonna say. And I'm gonna leave it at that. We do have an in-flight question, and it's a super simple one. With Arnold's name being Arnold Shortman, what would be your on-point name?
Oh, Jimmy Thicc. And to you?
Oh my God. Max, what about you?
Because
I feel like actually yours lines up pretty well as a whole.
Oh, what? You mean my name being Singer and I spent my entire year doing musicals in my youth? I hate to break this to you, but based on my frame, I actually am the surname Slenderman. I am the nightmare-inducing Slenderman. I'm so sorry.
And I am Jeffrey Indoor Kid. And
Jeffrey Latchkey.
Jeffrey, go outside, please. But
not
thank
spelled
you
the way you think.
Yeah, no, there is an umlaut in there somewhere if you look hard enough. But thank you so much for that in-flight question. Let's talk a little bit about the history of this show. There were 5 seasons of this show, 100 episodes made up of 185 of the different segments that we were speaking about. There were also 2 movies, one that debuted in the early 2000s and one that was a little bit more recent in 2017 as a continuation of the ending of this show.
Interesting.
The show officially ended in 2004, just for folks to know. The show was...
They came back 13 years later
for a movie.
That's awesome.
The show was also shown in the UK and Canada. And fun fact, this show is actually banned in Kenya for quote-unquote glorifying homosexual behavior. Fuck off!
What? Oh, they got gay Arnold?
There was supposed to be a spin-off of the show that was based off of Helga and her family. It didn't pick up enough traction. You can find every season of the show on DVD. After the movie came out in 2017, there were talks about rebooting it for a Gen Z audience. But it did not pick up enough steam because they didn't think they would be able to hold the attention of Gen Z, which is wild to read in an article. And then, Rich, for you specifically, you can actually find a vinyl record of all of the music from Hey Arnold. It came out in 2020.
Dude.
And you can still find some on eBay as well as Amazon.
You, me, and Zamboni Jones are sparking one up, and we're gonna listen to some jazz, baby.
Yeah, dude. That actually rips because I have a very vivid memory of the episode that they did where the entirety is Carmen, the musical Carmen. I'm sorry, the opera Carmen, not the musical. Goddamn.
No. Uncultured swine.
Yeah, clearly. But yeah, that was like that was a moment in culture, that having the Hey Arnold Carmen episode.
Well, yeah, that's the history of this show. Rich, it is time for your game of the week.
Yeah, hey, this one's called Hey Arnold. These are all trivia questions about people with the name Arnold. These are, I'm doing 3 questions so you guys can both jump in on them. Arnold Schwarzenegger has won all except for what? An Emmy, Mr. Universe, a Golden Globe, a Grammy, Mr. Olympia.
Max, I'm gonna let you try this one out first.
Okay, I'm going to say it is an Emmy.
And Jeff?
I'm going to say it's Mr. Universe.
Nope, he has won all but a Grammy.
Oh, okay.
He is not. I would love to hear the audio
for some reason. I thought it was a different. I was confusing Mr. Olympia and Mr. Universe as 2 separate types of events, not having to do with bodybuilding.
He actually won a Golden Globe like fairly close to when he was also Mr. Olympia. So that was like like a shocking, like bizarre EGOT conversation.
I'm not going to talk about the movie, but he plays a Greek god in a movie, and I highly recommend it because he doesn't know how to speak English in that movie.
Incredible.
What's next?
All right, second question. Arnold Palmer was dubbed the king for his domination of golf in the 60s and 70s. So they had 2 people that were nicknamed the king back then. What major did he never win? Was it the Masters, the PGA Championship, the US Open, or the British Open? He won all the other 3.
I'm going to say US Open.
Which, can you repeat those because my brain is not working?
The Masters, the PGA Championship, the US Open, and the British Open.
I'm going to say the PGA Championship.
He came in second 3 times at the PGA Championship, but never won it.
That is a bummer.
All right.
Here's being the Buffalo Bills of golf sucks.
I mean, he did still win the Masters multiple times.
I understand that, but
times in the
you know, he looked at that trophy case and was like, "Motherfucker!"
Yeah, it was like right next to his half and half lemonade and iced tea in the trophy case.
All right, here's a groaner. Tom Arnold.
Oh no,
has led a long and fruitful comedy and acting career. What of this following list has not been part of his journey? Performed as a prop comic, became the Arby's oven mitt mascot, the host of a show searching for incriminating Donald Trump videos, was the wedding planner for the quote unquote the biggest redneck wedding ever, won the Grand Prix of Long Beach Pro-Am, or was part of the Jerry Falwell Jr. cuckolding scandal that involved the Jerry Falwell's pool boy fucking his wife.
Thank you for describing what cuckolding means, Rich. Really?
Yeah. Well, you know, for all of our cuckolding novices here in the pod.
Tom Arnold has had a long and illustrious career, but I really wish you could have narrowed down these options.
Yeah.
Nope. No, I just want to give you a rundown of all the shit that Tom
I'm
Arnold
going to say Long Beach Pro-Am.
I'm going to say Rich is fucking with us, and he's done all of these things, but if I have to pick one...
I was really debating on doing that.
If I have to pick one, I think it's the Donald Trump show that you're talking about. What network's putting that live?
Max is right. He has done everything but win the Grand Prix of Long Beach Pro-Am. Past winners include Jason Bateman and the guy that played the Carlton on what's it called on the Fresh Prince.
I'm just gonna let you
multiple times. He's a great race car driver. Anyways, yes, he has performed as a prop comic. He was the Arby's oven mitt for 4 years. He was the host of a show searching for incriminating Donald Trump videos, which did not get renewed by Viceland. They did 8 episodes of Searching for the PP tape. He was the wedding planner for Country Music Television's The Biggest Redneck Wedding Ever, and he got a phone call with Michael Cohen, Trump's fixer, and that phone call led to the discovery of the Jerry Falwell Jr. scandal. And that Tom Arnold was part of.
So this is your first time listening to TVPL. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Where next week we'll be talking about Viceland's The Search for the PP tape.
And Rich, the actor who you are thinking of,
aka You're in Trouble,
is Alfonso Ribeiro.
Thank you so much.
Which you are so welcome.
Excellent race car driver.
Amazing race car driver. Well, Rich, thank you for that game of the week.
Yeah,
our flight is coming.
That was some weird research.
Our flight is coming to a land. Fortunately, unfortunately, who the fuck knows? But I have 2 questions for each of you. Based off of the pilot that we all watched of Hey Arnold, would you continue watching this show? And, I even discussed them. There have been talks about rebooting this show, bringing it back for a new age and a new audience. Gen Z might not be it, but what about Gen Alpha? So I'd like to hear from the 2 of you. What are your thoughts?
For me, this is an easy keep watching. I think this pilot sets up its world, its tone, its relationships, its dynamics, like what you're going to get out of it so well. It feels so fleshed out for being, the first 10-minute short and then these first 2 segments. I found it really enjoyable. This kills me to say, but because it is such a grounded, low stimulus show, I don't see it succeeding today. I don't think it's the type of show that would resonate with the audience that it's targeted at. And I think that I think that Hey Arnold totally could cover coming of age stories in the 21st century in a really effective manner. And I think it could do a great job with that, but I don't think its tone and its speed and its lack of flash is what the YouTube generation wants. And so for that reason, I have to say no to a reboot.
Rich, what about you?
Yeah. I also, I was shocked, probably more so than I would be with any other show from this era. I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it. It is very much my vibe aesthetically. I do really enjoy the artistic direction of it. I would absolutely watch it again. Here's my optimistic take. I think this next generation that comes is going to have a rebellious streak where they're less online. I think they are going to see what has happened to Gen Z, what has happened to millennials, and rebel against the I'm going to just be a target for an algorithm kind of thing. And if they can reboot the show in something that is not time specific, I don't want this to be this is taking place in 2029 or whatever. I want this to be something kind of timeless, because that's what Hey Arnold felt like in the 90s too. It did not feel like 1996. I would love to see that can come back, but if they can't do that, I just don't even bother. It's not going to be a good show.
Yeah, and for myself, 100%, I think it's 3 yeses about watching this based off of the pilot. It's so good. You can find it a lot of different places if you're looking for it and you want to take a step back into the 90s. Remaking it. I've been thinking about this all day, in all honesty, because in my brain of brains,
toiling.
There's a small part of me that, like Arnold, daydreams about being a producer at a studio and greenlighting something or not greenlighting something. And I think that, Rich, I'm very similar in your mind of if they can keep it timeless, if you can watch this and visualize the child, right? And not have to worry about, we don't have cell phones or iPhones or we don't have Apple Watches or anything like that. Great.
Yeah.
And
no one wants to see people looking at their phone on TV unless it's like a boomer commentary on millennials or Gen Z.
No.
Max just took out his phone.
Like there was a as it is the holiday season coming up, I watched a holiday movie last night that is very beloved, and it was made in the 80s. And guess what? Good writing means that you don't question when there's not technology that you're currently around.
Yeah.
So fucking write something good, and yeah, you can have Hey Arnold back. With that being said,
Geoff Kerbis with some vague threats at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, listen up. If you're thinking about bringing Hey Arnold back, and I see a fucking cell phone, I will find you.
For those of you keeping score at home, he has now threatened Ryan Seacrest and the creators of Hey Arnold.
He's got a circular saw and a blowtorch. He's gone bad.
Who gave him those things? With that all being said, our flight has come to a land. Max, Rich, where can folks find you if they're looking for you?
You can find me down at Ernie's Pool Hall. I've never played before, but I'll try. I don't know, $50? That seems fair. And you can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
Rich, what about you?
You can find me watching my hippie movies. And also on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find original sketch comedy by Max and me at Dadwagon Comedy on TikTok.
You can find me, Geoff, Stay Inside Kid, inside. But you can find me.
Geoff is stupid.
Yeah. You can also find me on social media at Run Geoff Run. You can find the TV Pilot's License anywhere you listen to anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as you can watch us on YouTube as well as now Spotify. If you have questions about the show or for our next episode, shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for sneak previews of some of our upcoming episodes. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe wherever you are following us because it helps us out a little bit when you do. With that being said, the plane is landed and the seatbelt sign off. We look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, eat street meat, and hey Arnold!
Hey Arnold!